Welcome to The Stack, an almost weekly web show where we talk all things Magic. My name is Matt, and today we have a deck tech for the M15 season of Standard. If you like tapping Nykthos for absurd amounts of mana, or casting giant creatures very early game like turns 3 or 4, or even just monstrousing a Polukranos for 10, 15, even 20 damage, then this is the deck for you. For our very first deck tech, we're taking a look at one of my personal favorite Standard decks at the moment, Mono Green Devotion. Stack viewers, I am a green mage at heart. I love giant creatures and I love having lots of them. I also love creating tons of mana. And this deck allows me to do that in Standard. That is so cool. Let's just jump right into the deck tech with the ramp package. Playsets of Elvish Mystic, Voyaging Satyr, Burning-Tree Emissary, and 3 copies of Courser of Kruphix are not going to surprise anybody. There's a ton of ramp in this deck, there's a ton of devotion in this deck, and there's a ton of mana in this deck, and the fact that Voyaging Satyr can untap Nykthos is just broken in this format. A lot of these decks also run 4 copies of Courser of Kruphix. I feel that 4 copies is a bit redundant. I'm not saying it's wrong, I just personally don't like running 4. So I took out the 4th Courser in favor of another card that has the exact same mana cost, the exact same devotion, but is a bit more versatile. The rest of the creature base includes playsets of both Polukranos and Genesis Hydra. Polukranos comes out very early in the game, almost always turn 3, and his monstrous ability is pretty much a wrath effect in most cases because you can just do it for so much. And the simple fact that Genesis Hydra can hit non-land permanents, not just creatures, makes this card just unbelievably good. Genesis Hydraing into a Garruk into dropping a creature for free is pretty much an instant win at that point. We also run 2 copies of Hornet Queen, and then single copies of Nylea, Arbor Colossus, Nylea's Disciple, and Reverent Hunter. Hornet Queen is so good in the current meta right now. Yeah, it's 7 mana, but you can get there by turn 3, believe me. And having 5 Death Touch flyers in a lot of cases is enough to win the game on its own. And even if they can somehow deal with it, you can just bring out another one. Nylea, Arbor Colossus, the Disciple, and Reverent Hunter are all situational cards. They're all in there as Chord of Calling targets. If you need your guys to have trample, you can chord out Nylea. She's also a 6/6 for 4 in most cases, which is awesome. If they have troublesome flyers, you can chord out Arbor Colossus. Burn decks just lose to Nylea's Disciple. I mean, the amount of life gain you can trigger with this card is just outrageous. And Reverent Hunter is an addition that I made to the deck that I haven't seen any other builds running. Sure, he doesn't protect himself, but he is a 3 mana creature that can easily be a 5/5 on turn 2. He's also a great target for Chord of Calling late game if you need a big blocker. I don't know, I think he's awesome. As far as non-creature spells go, we have 2 Planeswalkers in the deck, 2 copies of Garruk, Caller of Beasts, and 1 copy of Nissa Worldwaker. I don't think Nissa is the all-star that everyone wants her to be, but she's still very powerful. Being able to untap 4 forests immediately after you cast her and then cast something like a Polukranos right away is just really good. But other than that, she's not incredibly relevant. Being able to make your lands guys is pretty cool, but in most cases you're just tapping the lands for mana anyway because you have so much to do with all of your mana, so that's why I opted for just 1 copy. Garruk, on the other hand, is one of the best cards in the deck. Since this entire build is pretty much all creatures, his +1 ability will almost always draw you between 3 and 4 cards, and his -3 is devastating when you can drop a Hornet Queen for free. We also have 3 copies of Chord of Calling and 1 Bow of Nylea. Chord of Calling is just one of the best cards in M15, by far the best green card of M15. It is so powerful to be able to just get an answer whenever you need it at instant speed. It's amazing. And Convoke is almost always relevant since your board state is just crazy most of the time. The single Bow of Nylea is one of my favorite cards in the deck, honestly, and it is so underrated it's not even funny. Giving my attacking creatures Death Touch, especially Polukranos with his monstrous ability, is just hilarious. And every single one of the mana abilities are relevant in this deck. 2 damage to flyers kills opposing Hornet Queens as well as problematic flyers Mono Blue has. Gaining 3 life is always fun. Being able to put cards from my graveyard back into my deck just keeps making my Chord of Callings better. And the +1/+1 counter is probably the least relevant thing because your guys are so big already, but it can in a pinch make your smaller guys big enough to block something. For the mana base, it's really simple. We have 4 Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, a single Darksteel Citadel, and 19 forests. The forests and Nykthos are pretty self-explanatory, and the Darksteel Citadel is in there for a cute interaction it has with Nissa, or she can turn it into an indestructible 4/4 with trample that can't be removed from the game. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's hilarious. Our sideboard consists of 2 more Nylea's Disciples. Once again, just super good against burn decks. You bring these in against them and they basically can't win. 4 Mistcutter Hydras basically shuts down Mono Blue Devotion. 2 copies of Phyrexian Revoker are basically a Pithing Needle that you can chord for. There's 2 copies of Setessan Tatics in the sideboard because that card is just insane. And then we have 5 more one-ofs. We have a second Arbor Colossus, a Reclamation Sage, a Time to Feed, a Hornet's Nest, and a Soul of New Phyrexia. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory. The Soul of New Phyrexia is in there to deal with Supreme Verdict decks, and honestly, that's our worst matchup. The Supreme Verdict just destroys this deck. So the dream is being able to, in response to a verdict, chord out a soul and then activate its indestructible ability, but that's a ton of mana, and Supreme Verdict is usually cast around turn 4 or 5, so it's not always going to happen, but it's in there just in case. And the Hornet's Nest is just kind of a fun one for the mirror match, where if they swing in with a giant guy, you can chord out a Hornet's Nest block and get a whole bunch of Death Touch flyers and kill them. Again, the rest of the cards are pretty situational, and it's pretty obvious which situations they're relevant in. And aside from that, that's the deck tech, you guys. Thank you all so much for watching the very first video on the stack. Once again, I am Matt, and we have a bunch of more videos coming up for you. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, maybe subscribe, and leave some comments down below. Let us know what you thought of the deck. If you've played against a deck like this, or if you actually have a deck like this, what you think it's going to be like post-rotation. I have no idea what we're going to do without Garruk. He's way too good. Yeah, but thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys real soon.